Well, welcome everyone. I'm really glad that you're here today. We have a special treat for you. As you all know, we try to do these type of webinars probably 3 to 4 times a year. We've had 3 in a row, which is very unique for us. But I had an opportunity to sit down and meet Speedy Turtle, which is Dave Wilkinson, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. I had heard of him for years, knew of him, but did not know him. So it's been my pleasure to get to spend a little bit of time to get ready with him for this webinar. So welcome, Speedy Turtle.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to finally get to meet you after floating around in a number of the same circles over the years. And it's wonderful to be the first webinar of the year. So rock on.
Absolutely.
Welcome to 2025.
Absolutely. So welcome, Living with Low and No Vision series. This is kind of unique for me because, again, you're like a legend. I've heard about you for a long, long time. You're right. We ran some of the same circles. I hadn't had a chance to meet you, and now as we progress further, you'll talk about that you're on a team that my son happens to be on as well, and we'll get into all of that. We've got so much. I mean,
Absolutely.
I have to be careful because I could spend all hour on one slide. So the opening slide says meet Dave Speedy Turtle Wilkinson, or meet Dave Wilkinson, Speedy Turtle. And there's a picture of you with some beautiful snow, and behind you are a bunch of flags. And I know you sent us a lot of great pictures, and it says number 2, so it looks like you're part of a
Oh,
race.
where's that? Yes, that's a cross country ski race, probably in the Kananaskis Valley, in Alberta. I go skiing every year with a number of blind and visually impaired cross country skiers, and that's undoubtedly from one of those races.
Excellent, excellent. So first of all, my big question of the hour is, how in the world did you get the name Speedy Turtle?
I wish I could remember the exact origins. As I remember it, when you're doing a marathon or when you're doing anything that takes a long time, towards the end of it, you get kind of sick of it, and you're getting kind of slow, and things start to hurt, and people are always cheering you on the sidelines, way to go, whatever. And you're like, I feel like I'm just kind of creeping along, but I am speedy for a turtle. And that's literally all there is to it. It was one of those delusional thoughts that occurs to you when you're just exhausted. And it was like, I like that. Speedy turtle. It's sort of the ultimate oxymoron. And that totally works for me. And
That's
turtles are fun anyway. They've got their
absolutely.
houses right there with them. So what the heck?
Love it. Love it. Well, that's
And
really
my
cool.
and my son had turtles growing up, so that just sort of added to it.
That's such a cool story. Um, so what we're going to cover today, we've got some talking points, and we'll talk about this next picture in just a minute. But we'll talk a little bit more about Dave's background, motives for becoming an endurance athlete, accomplishments and challenges, what he's using for assistive technology, and then what's next for Speedy Turtle. So this next picture I just love because I actually have a very similar picture to myself, jumping out of an airplane in tandem with someone, and I love this picture. So tell us, obviously we know you've jumped out of a plane here, but tell us, what's this picture about? Tell us the story.
This particular picture, I've gone skydiving a few times. This particular picture was right after my son turned 18. I'd been telling him for years that as soon as he was 18, we go jump out of airplanes together. And so I texted him, and it was just like, "You ready to go skydiving?" And it's probably the quickest response I ever got from him. And there was this immediate yes, probably in all caps and exclamation points. And so we went to a little skydiving place in Elizabethtown, Kentucky, and jumped out of airplanes together. And the hardest part of the day was probably figuring out who was going to go first. And my view was that he had to go first because if I didn't bring him back home, then I may as well just not bother opening the chute because mom was going to be mad. And so he got to go first. And then he got some beautiful pictures of me coming down, which was an extra benefit to it. But it was a wonderful sort of guy bonding moment. guys are just dangerous in airplanes. The testosterone kicks in, and you go from thinking, "Oh, this is scary. This is, we're 15,000 feet off the ground," to, "Ooh, I want to go first," just because that's what guys do.
Absolutely. Yeah, so when I turned 50 is when I did my jump, and I would do it again in a minute. I was lucky enough my husband went, and some of you know him, but he worked for AI Squared. He's no longer there, but Scott Moore. Scott Moore came to Vegas, and I've been friends with Scott for years. And he actually has jumped quite a bit. In fact, he may have jumped enough that he can actually go solo at this point. But it was on my bucket list, and we did it, and it was just amazing. So I highly recommend if you guys are thinking about that or it's on your bucket list. I just say go do it. It's just a blast. I don't know, every company's a little different, every plane's a little different. We had to do a somersault out of the plane that I did it.
Yeah,
And when the guy told me that, I'm like, okay, well, that ain't happening. He goes, well, then we're not getting out of this plane together. So we did it. To me, that was the scariest part. Other than that, once I was out there and you feel like you're a bird, it's
you
pretty
do.
amazing.
And from a blindness perspective, what always fascinated me about it was the radical differences in noise level. When you first go out of the plane, you're falling towards the ground at 120 miles an hour, and there's this rush of wind, and you're just out in space, and you can't hear yourself scream. And
Right.
then in a matter of a couple of seconds, when the ripcord gets pulled, it's this very peaceful, very sedate uh, view of the world as it slows down, and it kind of reminds me of what you're trying to achieve with meditation. I guess sometimes you're just like, oh, that's what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, you just hit a point where it's just quiet, still, and
Yeah,
you kind of let go and you kind of forget, hey, I'm up in the sky here. You know,
yeah.
yeah, I
it's
would
it's it's
agree.
pretty amazing,
It,
and with someone else in control, you can just sit back and enjoy the ride, and they want to make it down, so they're going to be careful, and you can just
absolutely.
kick back and enjoy the ride.
That's so cool. That's cool. So Dave, let's back way up because I mean I've got to know you for a bit, and some people on here definitely know you, but let's tell a little bit about your story. So talk about your vision loss. Talk about why in the world you do all these crazy endurance things you do, and share a little bit about your work as well because you don't just go around and do crazy things. You have a
Yeah, I
full-time
have to
job
pay
on
for it
top of
all.
it, and you have a lot of responsibility. So let's jump into that, and I'm going to change the slide, but we'll talk about the next slide in a minute. But go ahead and jump into that if you would.
Absolutely. I grew up in rural Arkansas. I'm a Leber's congenital amaurosis kid, or an LCA kid, so I've always had pretty much the same vision now that I had growing up, which is virtually none. I can see if a light is on or off, and that's about all that really reliably I can tell at this point. If I see something, there's a good chance I'm about to hit it. Um, and not voluntarily, but just a sort of trajectory of travel. But I grew up in a household I had a brother and two sisters, and my parents both worked, and there was very much a feeling of it wasn't like I was coddled as a kid. None of us kids were, and as as a result, we all ended up just sort of being really pushed to do our own thing and to make life into our own experience. My siblings didn't really care that I couldn't see. They were much more interested in if I was going to do my chores like everyone else. And, you know, and it was just typical little brother stuff. My older brother and I wrestled a lot, um, which apparently sometimes got pretty scary, according to my younger sister. Um, my Santa Claus brought a two-seat bike when I was 4 or 5 years old for Christmas one year. My parents were not really into the idea of me riding bikes in the street, which does make sense. And so the idea was to be able to have a tandem bike. So we rode that thing all over the place. It was the ambulance and cops and robbers. When there would be crashes, it would come out and sort of, you know, pick up the debris of humanity left by the bike crashes and stuff. But so I was just very much treated like any other kid. Um, scars, blood, all that type of stuff. You're just like, whatever, it happens to other kids. Go out there and make your own way into the world, which I've been forever eternally grateful for. Uh, Having parents who never really said no. They might have said that something didn't seem like a particularly good idea, but if I came, if I think if any of us kids wanted to try something or thought that there was something interesting or creative that we could do, my parents were always in favor of going for it, and that's an amazing gift to give your child.
Absolutely. I obviously I've been in this industry. I keep adding years, but I think we're up to 37 now. It's been a long time, most of my life. This has been my career. And so I've got to know a lot of people and I've met people. Well, I have pretty two good examples here in town. I won't say their names, but I have a person that her mom, same type of family situation as yours. She always went to regular school. Everything was pretty much just, well, you better figure it out because you're going to be an adult. So you're going to have to figure out how to do this, and she's been pretty much blind since birth. And then I have another friend that it was the opposite. The parents, they did, I can't remember how many eye surgeries on her. And I'm not saying that's wrong or right. I'm just saying it didn't help her in the long run. And her parents, you can't have scissors, you can't have this, you can't, it was more full of the I can't, you can't. And she's moved way beyond that and done like amazing things that just like blow my mind all the time. Whether she had vision or didn't have vision, the stuff she's doing is like, oh my gosh, you're a little crazy there, girl. And she does some athletic things that you're doing as well. So I hear both, and I'm glad to hear that you came from the camp you came from. So the next picture that popped up does say Dave with his family. This I think
Yes,
was just this was just
this was
Christmas.
very recent. Yeah, this
Okay.
was this was taken a couple weeks ago, and this is my mom and my sisters. My mom is turning 90 in February,
Oh my gosh.
and this also has my son and his wife and our granddaughter, which just seems insane for me to be talking about grandkids.
Wow.
Um,
They're great.
I'm
I
just
love grandkids. I have
so
three. So yeah.
so
Um,
it's a very exciting time.
well, your
You know.
mom, this is so cute, but I know she's turning 90, but in this picture, she is just smiling from ear to ear. But she looks like a little itty bitty. Like, how tall is she?
Mom is what, 4'10", I
Oh
think at
my
this point.
gosh.
So she was 5'2", and then aging she shrunk a little bit, which she's been kind of cranky about. Um,
Oh my gosh.
she's like 4'10", 4'11", something like that.
That is just amazing. Well, I can just tell that she has that little, I'd say like ornery streak. She just looks like, boy, she's probably full of vim and vigor.
Oh, absolutely. We when I took her zip lining when she turned 80.
Oh my
Um,
gosh, I love
we-
it.
you know, we're at our best moments. I think we're both kids.
Yeah.
My wife tells horror stories about us zooming through Walgreens and activating all the Halloween toys to see how many of them we could get to go at the same time. And this is me and my mom conspiring with each other to be annoying little creatures.
I love it. I
It
love
was a
it.
lot of fun.
I love it. So some questions have already came up. Someone asked, what do you call people that have vision with vision?
That is so unfair because you know the answer. The person who asked the question, the obvious answer, and the only proper way to refer to someone with vision is that they are sightlings. Um, they're sightlings are cute and cuddly, and sometimes they're downright useful. But I think we should all have little sightling action dolls sitting up on our mantelpieces.
Oh my gosh. Absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. And Calvin commented that he really liked the description of skydiving. So that's really, really cool.
Same
So
here. That's just
that's a
chimed
little bit
in.
about your vision, and that's a little bit about what happened and with your vision and how you were raised and those kind of things. Excuse me, I'm going to have to get some water. But I'd
Hmm.
like to know what made you want to start doing all these challenges?
I'm not sure if I have a complete answer for that. I think there are a number of things that have come into play over the years with that. Um, I've always been I've been relatively athletic and interested in pursuing athletics over the years. When I was in high school, I wrestled and that type of stuff. Um, I it's no big secret. Anyone who knows me knows that I'm a recovering alcoholic, and I think part of the reason for doing some of this stuff is that you look for healthy things to get hooked on. And for me, part of that is exercise, and it's figuring out what my body can do and what I can make it do next, and coming up to that sort of line, and then stepping a toe over that line and seeing what happens. So I, I think that in brief is how I sort of got into it. I got into marathons. I didn't do my first marathon until I was 40. I'd done a lot of skiing before then, but I'd moved back to Arkansas, and which is not super conducive to skiing, and had signed up for a 5K. I hadn't done any running on streets in years, but I had a coworker who was bragging about how well she was going to do in this 5K, and it annoyed me. So I've decided I would sign up and beat her. Um, and the person that I got teamed up with for a guide ended up being a gentleman named Jacob Wells, who was a dear friend and a guide for many years. And we were probably two of the most unfiltered uh, human beings on the planet. And we would just sort of take off and do things. And he would give a call. This was Jacob sort of in a nutshell. It was 114 degrees outside, real temperature, and it's humid and it's just miserable in Little Rock. You think Vegas and then add the humidity to it.
Ugh.
And Jacob calls up and he's like, "Drop what you're doing. We may never get a chance to run when it's this hot again. I'll be there in a few minutes." And
He's crazy
and then
just
he
like you.
and then he was crestfallen by the time we got into the trails. It had fallen to 111, and he's like, "We got to take off now before it gets any colder." Um, so the other part of your question, I think that sort of fuels a lot of it, um, where I sort of made the jump from marathons into other things like the ultra cycling and some of this stuff. I was in a car crash uh, about just around Christmas of 2017 that ended up doing some nasty damage to me. It messed up four vertebrae in my neck. It had fractured two of them and did some nerve damage and lots of other entertaining stuff. And it the experience of being sort of immobile and not able to do what I wanted when I wanted really irritated me. And I was bored and I was frustrated, and I was kind of mad that the thing that almost killed me was as mundane and boring as a car crash. And there had to be more creative ways to if you were going to exit the planet, there had to be more creative and interesting ways of doing it. And I became kind of obsessed with proving that I was all the way back and not letting this car crash uh, divert me for any longer than it needed to. And it became a goal as far as just, figuring out something absurd to do to prove that I was back. And what I landed on doing was Ironman competitions. And I started training for an Ironman, which is a what is it, a 2.4 mile swim, 112-mile bike ride, and a full marathon, which is 26.2 miles. And it seemed like the most patently absurd thing that I could think of. And so it was like, if I can break my neck and come back and do an Ironman, then I've come all the way back. And it just became sort of an obsession at that point. And I agreed to do Ironman, or decided to do Ironman, before I really knew how to swim effectively, or before I owned a decent racing tandem, or any of the other pieces that were in place. But it was all just a puzzle that was going to have to get put together so that I could prove that I was back, that I was invincible after all.
That's pretty amazing. So the picture I have here is a picture of you on the back of a tandem bike. The gentleman in front's got bright pink on with looks like a yellow or green hat, and then your number it looks like 2048. So I think that might be a recent race that you did for Race Across America or preparing for that. But correct me if I'm wrong. This could be part of another race. It could be an Ironman. I don't know.
This could be there's no telling. I sent enough pictures that there's no this may be from Worlds where we did this, which is the 24-hour competition where you go as far as you can ride, which the your son was involved in. We were teamed up
Well, he's the one that told me that
as
I had the
relay
picture
teams.
labeled wrong. So I think it is his world. He told me that's what it was. So we're gonna go
So
with
but
that.
we're all out in the desert riding around for for a day and through the night trying to see how far we can get, um, which is not the average way of spending a Friday to Saturday, I guess.
So is the proper name pilot with the person that's writing on the front? Are they called the pilot?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So first of all, this brings up a big question for me. Your pilot is important, just like my pilot on my plane. Now, I fly a lot, but I don't go meet the pilot and see if he's skilled, but you have that ability. So how do you go about picking a pilot? I mean, how do you even start that process? And where do you find these people?
You can find anything on the internet. Um,
Yeah, but I don't
it's
know.
and, and finding a pilot is it almost feels like it almost feels like the beginning of a dating relationship, in that you're trying to find someone that you trust, who is going to trust you. uh you're going to see each other in, in closer proximity than you're going to see most other human beings. You're going to spend tons of time with this person, and so you need to be able to put up with each other when you're at your best, at your worst, etc. And so pretty much what I do is I go out onto forums like the Race Across America forum or on the Ironman forums online, and advertise. I'm like, hey, I'm looking to do X, Y, and Z. This is your opportunity to hop on the front of a tandem bike and get a blind rider through this experience, or run or swim or whatever it is. And so you're almost promoting yourself, and people have been doing this. So what I found, I guess, is that people are like, oh, I've done lots of Ironman competitions, never thought about it doing it with someone. That sounds interesting. Sign me up. And
Right.
so you get people who are in way better shape than me and way better athletes than me, who are doing this literally because they're just kind of bored with doing an Ironman solo. So why not do it with someone else?
Got it.
Um, so you so the short answer is the internet. Uh, you have to be willing to just throw yourself out there. The worst anyone can say is no. Chances are that they're going to have said no long before they ever get in touch with you, so you'll never know that they said no.
Right.
And you see what comes back.
That's interesting. So, Caleb mentioned that you guys did 400 plus miles on that race. And then
We
Bobby,
did.
he said that he at one time sold a tandem bike to you and then bought it back. And now it's being
Yes, he did.
ridden by a blind person in San Antonio. So, hey, it's being used. That's really cool. That's really
That's
cool.
right. That's right. I bought that bike before I really uh, had committed to finding a pilot and getting into cycling. And so it sat around in my garage, and then Bobby ended up buying it back from me.
That's cool. That's cool. We'll come back to racing, but the next slide is actually a picture of you for your office setup. So talk about that. First of all, what do you do for your job that pays the fun stuff and other things in life? And then you've got some wearable glasses on. You've also got a couple computers. You've got a lot of stuff going on there. So break down what you do and then how you do it and some about this assistive technology that you're using.
I am incredibly lucky to be working as part of the digital accessibility team at Hilton. I'm a senior digital accessibility analyst, which translated into daily people speak means that I work on a team uh, that makes sure that we provide the most accessible experience possible for guests who are making reservations or coming on to Hilton properties. Uh, our that extends to the mobile app. It extends to development of software that hotels are using, for things like reservations to make sure that it's accessible. So that a disability is not a barrier and you being hired to work in that job. We want to have the most inclusive experience possible, and because we're in the hospitality industry, we then want to take it a step further so that anyone and everyone feels the warmth and light of hospitality when they come to Hilton's.
That's amazing. I'm so glad to hear that they, have that in place. I know that they obviously have beautiful facilities. I've stayed in some Hiltons, and actually, my um, mother-in-law, who's not no longer alive, sadly, but she worked for Hilton Corporation for many, many years. So I know a lot of good things about them. So let's talk about
Well, if I
how
can
do
jump in
you
real
all?
quick, just
Sure.
a blatant commercial for people who are staying at Hilton's, we do have access to Be My Eyes, so that if you use the Be My Eyes app, anything that's not accessible, uh, in my case, exercise equipment is what I was using this for the other day, or the soaps and shampoos and conditioners in the room, or whatever it may be. When you use Be My Eyes, if you choose category search and choose hotels, you are taken to Hilton's brand, all of our Hilton brands, and you are connected with Hilton trained staff. So you're not just getting a volunteer; you're getting a Hilton trained staff person who can be of assistance to you when you're staying on Hilton properties. So that's something that we're incredibly excited about that happened towards the end of last year. So give it a try the next time you're at a Hilton property.
That's amazing. So first of all, there's some people on here that might not even know what Be My Eyes is. So can you explain
That's
that?
a very good point. Be My Eyes is a program that uses either artificial intelligence or real human beings on the other end of your phone, where they can see what your camera is pointed at. So that if I walked outside right now and had a volunteer from Be My Eyes, they would see that there is a bunch of snow, and they could tell me that if I had shoveled my walkway straight or not. Um, that you can use them for anything that you would ordinarily use a set of eyes for, but it's all volunteer. The difference in that and what we're doing with Hilton's connection to Be My Eyes is you can download that app and use your phone and have a Hilton staff person explain whatever details you're needing explained in a Hilton stay, whether it's where the fitness center is or how to get the treadmill started, or again, my favorite bugaboo, which of these is shampoo, conditioner, or soap. There's nothing more annoying when you get up in the morning and you're stumbling through your shower and you end up soaking your washcloth with conditioner. That's not what I wanted. So we can take care of that with Be My Eyes.
That's awesome. So in this picture, you're in front of your computer. It looks like, I mean, I can't read the print on the screen. Even if I was sitting there, I don't know if I'd be able to see it. So talk about you use a screen reader, and first of all, we have to probably describe what that is because there's some people on here that don't know. And
Sure.
tell us how that works.
I use a screen reader. The particular screen reader that I use is called JAWS, which stands for Job Access with Speech. It was invented by a couple of folks a long, long time ago, one of whom is a blind water skier. And rumor has it that he always found the JAWS reference funny, and that the acronym came after the acronym just filled in a way of naming it after a shark since he'd been in the ocean so much. But what a screen reader does, it it grabs information that's going to your computer screen, and it puts it into speech and or braille for you. And one of the things that's in the picture that you're looking at there, or that was described to you, is I have a couple of different braille displays on different computers, and I'm a fanatical braille reader, and I end up using the screen reader to access parts of the screen using speech and braille at the same time. You don't have to be a braille reader to be able to use a screen reader. There are plenty of people that use the speech component just fine, and you can do things like have JAWS speak differently when you see bolded text or highlighted text. Um, to where you have different attributes of speech or attributes of print that are emphasized. Um, so you can customize it, and it's just an auditory way of customizing your computer and getting information that's very similar to what visual people are doing, except that you're using your keyboard and they're using a mouse.
Excellent. And you're wearing some glasses. Let's talk about those and what are they? And that's considered what we call a wearable in the industry. So kind of talk about that a little bit.
Those are glasses from Envision. They are AI glasses. I can use those to do everything from reading my mail to reading having a restaurant menu read to me. I can teach those glasses faces so that when it sees like my wife or someone else that I know in a room, they can tell me that they're there. Uh, and vision glasses allow for things like color detection. You can do scene detection so that if I'm in my basement, which is where we're doing this from at the moment, it would be able to tell me that there's lots of gear all over the place and probably even identify what some of the workout gear is and some of the other things that it sees in the basement. So Envision has been doing AI glasses for a number of years. There are other alternatives now. You could use something like the blind community is really excited about Meta Ray Bans at this point, which are commercially are mainstream products. So the price has come down quite a lot from what they started out with Envision, and you get a lot of the same features off of it. So that I can use these glasses to identify something like a street sign or a number or a name off of a building, or I can look towards a window and ask the Envision glasses, or you could use your Meta Ray Bans to say, what are you looking at? And I'd be able to tell what that shop sold by what came back and what was through the window. So it's just another tool of being able to expand my horizons and be as independent as possible.
That's cool. That's cool. It's so neat that there's so much out there. As our company, LVI, Low Vision International, we focus mainly on low vision. The one product we have, it's called a Voice. It's a reading machine that's very simple. You just open up the handle and the camera then becomes visible. You put something underneath it, take a picture, and it reads it to you. And there's options out in the market of that particular product as well. And we're not here to focus on a bunch of products, but I wanted you guys to see what Dave does. How does he function at his job? What products is he using? All of those types of things. So thank
And
you.
and I do want to point out that I'm incredibly lucky. Very few people would have more than one braille display sitting in front of them. I was in the blindness assistive technology industry for a long time and was able to get deals on different products over the years. But I do want to point out that I realize that I'm incredibly lucky. And when you're looking at putting a, a workstation or a computer station together, you don't need all of this stuff that I've got. It's here because it makes a really good picture. Um, and so I don't want you to think, oh my God, I need all that stuff. You don't.
Yep. You got to just start with one thing, get good at that, and then determine if other things are needed.
That's correct. That's correct.
Excellent. So the next picture is probably one of my favorites. I know you like it as well. I have it say Mr. Adventure hanging from a helicopter. What the heck, man, are you
This
doing?
to fill in the picture for those of you who can't see it, I'm dangling from a helicopter. There's a bunch of snow and ice down below. Uh, I'm you can't tell who they are, but there are two medics that are dangling from this helicopter with me. Basically, I'm being medevaced out of a ski crash in a remote part of Alberta, where I skied into a tree. Uh, through no fault of my guide, I should add. I should add when you're doing competitions like this or just sports like this, people get hurt, and that just goes with the territory, and that doesn't stop just because you can't see. And for whatever reason, I interpreted a direction incorrectly, or who knows what, I don't remember. I clobbered a tree, and this is me after clobbering the tree in a remote part of Alberta that didn't have cell service. Um, we were lucky enough to find someone. The details are hazy. That I don't know if they had a sat phone or what they had, but they were able to get some sort of message back to whoever the people are that do things like send helicopters to rescue you. And this is how I got out of this remote area of Alberta and back into civilization. And for those of you who are wondering if it's comfortable to ride dangling from a helicopter, the answer is no. It's really, really cold. Um, so it's probably the
You
coldest I've
look
ever
like
been in my
James
life.
Bond, I tell you. When I look at this picture, I'm just like going, okay, this is an action shot. This isn't even really him. He's making this stuff up. And Wade has put this
I
picture together. You totally look like
I am
James Bond.
ridiculously proud of this picture. My wife is not very proud of this picture. She's sitting over a couple of feet from me and is probably wanting to yell that she hates this picture. I, I absolutely love this picture. It was worth the concussion. It was worth hitting the tree. It was worth all of it to get such a cool picture.
Yeah, it
And
is.
she's over here saying no.
Yeah, and there's a little on this picture, there's a little slanted up wording. It says, "This is the work that keeps me flying." I love it.
That's right. And
Yeah.
this was taken by the pilot of the helicopter. It probably is. They probably used it in budget hearings for the next year to prove that you actually needed a helicopter to get people, get idiots out of remote parts of the trail.
Yeah. Well, you brought up your wife. And so I kind of want to talk about this because, everyone's different, whether you have low vision, no vision, or full vision. Everybody has different things that they do in life. Some
Right.
people never do any of these, what they would consider these crazy things. Some people, you know, that's what they thrive on. But I always like to ask people, and this is across the board when I'm interviewing anybody, is what and whom are you most thankful? Because it takes a village, it takes a family. You can't go out and just do these crazy things on your own. There's people behind you. So for what or whom are you most thankful for?
Gosh, and that would be an incredibly long list that would start with my wife. She's very patient. She's very supportive. She puts up with long training hours. She puts up with me when I have doubts about if I've taken on something that might be a little too big. She's just incredibly supportive, and there's there's just no way of describing how lucky I am to have married up and to have Dawn as my wife. Um, I'm also very really glad to have my youngest sister Sarah is was my crew chief when I made an attempt at Race Across America. She's also been at like all of these events over the years, and we're just very close as siblings. And I am very comfortable with her leading up a lot of the details behind this stuff, and I'm very fortunate. Um, and I'm very thankful for my parents that they didn't raise me as a fragile being, that they understood that life goes on, and you know the fact that I can't see doesn't change the fact that there's a whole big world out there. And so I was very lucky to have the parents that I had. And I guess the last thing that I would say that because I could go on for, it'd be like an Academy acceptance speech. But I'm very thankful for all the opportunities that I've had over the years and for people that have supported me in and just in various undertakings, and that people have been there and believed in me. And that's a very humbling experience.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You mentioned a team, and I know just because of talking with my son and things like that, and we'll talk more about that race and what's happening with that in just a minute. But when you put together a team, who and what do you look for? I mean, I understand the team isn't just who is your pilot. The team is who's riding in that vehicle behind you when you're doing these crazy, several day races. Who's in charge of your all your supplements and things that you're taking, and because you can't just keep running,
Right,
you have to be obviously having some intake of different things. So how do you
right.
go about that? That's a process for anyone. I know my son is, you have to find the right people. One wrong person, it messes up everything because the team
It
also
does.
is very alert and has to be very, they have to be up for hours on end. And so kind of talk about that. How do you find a team and how do you even go about that process?
The crew and the team that gets involved in this are always the unsung heroes of this. They're the people that are operating in the background to to keep the racers moving. And what you really are looking for is a team that is committed to me, I guess, or in the case of a tandem bike to us, and doing anything that they can to keep us moving forward at at that moment. You need to have good chemistry between the team members, and you're right. If you have one, if you make a mistake in any of this, someone who does not have the right chemistry with the other team members can be poisonous. I think we've all racers have all had experiences where we had someone that was the wrong person for the team. And so part of it's trial and error. Part of it is you get people that you trust, that you know, and that you believe completely has your best interest at heart. And in some instances, like with my sister, I need to have people who can say things to me that I'm not comfortable hearing or that I may not want to hear at different points, whether it's, that it's during, if it's been the end of a really long day, she can do something like order me off the bike to take a rest that I may not want to take. And you need to have someone who's going to stand their ground. So the team does all kinds of things in these long races. And when we're talking about long races, when we've mentioned Race Across America a couple of times. This is a 3,000-mile bike race that goes from coast to coast, and you're trying to finish it. When you're doing this as a solo project, you get 12 days, and when you do this as part of a relay team, you get something like 8 days. So every second matters. And so the team is figuring out where things like where the route is. Um, they're figuring out how to keep you cool in the desert. We literally had team members this past summer with super soakers that are spraying us in the desert so that we won't be roasting at 121 degrees. They're always making sure that water bottles are filled. You've got someone who's just looking at a map to make sure that we're staying on course in areas that don't have cell reception. Um, and then you have people who are literally just who are cheerleaders who are keeping the whole thing going and keeping the energy level up and keeping things moving from one to the next to the next to the next. It's a small city on wheels when you're doing
Absolutely.
these long races.
Yeah, I haven't had the privilege of getting to be part of my son's team. I mean, my job keeps it to where most of the time I'm traveling, but my husband one time got to be part of a 24-hour race here, and I got to get a lot more insight on that. So it's the team is super important. Like you said, there's times I know they've had to come to him and say, "You're done. Like you need to go to emergency. Like you
Yeah,
can't lay on the side of the road any longer. Like
that's
you
right.
cannot
That's
function."
right.
And you have to have that. And it's just it's an incredible thing that you guys are doing. Someone has asked, Meredith is who it is, if there any sport that you would that's kind of off limits that you would not try, you would not do as someone with that's totally blind.
Oh gosh. Uh
I think your answer is never.
I
I,
don't
I think you
yeah,
guys, you're so crazy. You'll do anything.
I don't know if I'm big enough for football. I don't want to get squished. Um um but in general, I'll I'll try just about anything once. If other people have done it and if they survive the experience, and then I'm going to survive the experience. Um, the Bobby Lakey knows this because we've talked about it in the past. Bobby was a, a really good beat ball player at one point. He played a lot of beat baseball. I will not do something like beat baseball. Any sport that involves them blindfolding me and then hitting objects at me so that I can hear them coming and I'm not supposed to get out of the way. I find sports like that to be very difficult. The fight or flight kicks in, and I want to get out of the way of things like flying, beeping baseballs, and you're supposed to actually stop them, and that seemed like a bad idea to me. So
I,
hats off to people who are willing to put themselves in deliberately in the path of hurtling objects that are making noise.
Yeah, kind of crazy. I agree with you, but that does sound like something Bobby would do. Calvin said, yeah, Calvin said that the helicopter photo was a great photo and an adventurous story and made him definitely smile. He wants to know, have you ever thought about being a trainer slash mentor for any low vision or kids that have no vision that are interested in endurance sports, but they don't know where to start?
Gosh, I would love to. I have talked to people in the past to try to get them interested in some of this stuff. Whether it's the short answer is yes, I would love to. I've done a bit of that in the past. Um, I'm always happy to talk to people who are interested in just figuring out what some of this stuff is about. The initial caveat that I always throw out there is don't think about doing things on such a grandiose scale in the beginning. Start with something relatively obtainable. Um, train for a 5K, which is a 3 mile race. And if you end up walking your first 5K, who cares? You still get, the t-shirt for participating. Um, don't take on too much too soon. This is always You always see this on TV at the beginning of every year when people make these wild resolutions and then realize they can't keep them, and so they stop doing anything. Start small and allow your goals and your aspirations to get bigger as you become more confident in your abilities and as you keep moving forward. But if you start out thinking, oh, I'm gonna run a marathon next month, no, you're probably not. You might run it in 6 months, might be a year. So be realistic with yourself, which is
Yeah.
not the question that was asked, but
No, but I
it's
think
one of the
that
first things I would tell somebody.
I think that that's good advice, and I know you can take Calvin offline and work with him on that. But I think that
Absolutely.
he has great ideas too, because that would be something that would be so beneficial to kids out there that might not know what to, or parents of those children. They're like, well, they want to do this, but we don't know where to start. And we, of course, as a parent, we don't want them to get injured, or we don't want this. So I do think that that's something cool maybe you hadn't thought of. The next
The
picture.
biggest thing,
Go ahead,
the
sorry.
biggest thing, and then we'll move on to the next picture, but the biggest thing with this is no one is going to make it happen. You have to be the you have to be your biggest cheerleader, and that's not always easy. Despite outward appearances, it is it can be exhausting always putting yourself out there and saying, this is what I want to do, and this is how I'm going to make it happen. But no one else is going to. You have to be willing to throw yourself front and center, and be your own best advocate.
I would agree. And that's anything in life if we really stop and think about it. It's
Yes,
that's talking to my son, I hear a lot of that, and he's, into the endurance sports and just into life, just making your life goals, come true. It
absolutely.
comes back to us. The
It
buck always
does.
stops here.
It does. It does. It always comes from within.
So that next picture that we have up here, I really like this picture too. You are running, it's a running marathon, it might be part of an Ironman, and the guy next to you has his fist up in the air, like, cool, cool. You have a jacket or a orange vest on without a shirt, and it says visually impaired, and then there's a time right above you. So it's showing the time 3.36.10.
Oh, this is my first marathon. This is running with Jacob Wells. We did everything shirtless.
Well,
Um,
you might as well.
you might as well. And we ran in sleet with no shirts. It was part of our whole shtick. But this is right at the finish line of my first marathon. I never came close to this time ever again in a marathon. The closest I ever came to 3:36 after this was 13 minutes slower. So I don't know what was going right for the first marathon, but the rockets had been lit that day. It's a wonderful picture. It's one of my favorite pictures on earth. Jacob died a number of years ago from an enlarged heart that he didn't know that he had. And I always try to work a picture into Jacob into any type of presentation I do. I miss him terribly. He was a wonderful, wonderful person who. It, Jacob and I were both basically middle school kids.
Yeah.
that happened to be in adult bodies, and it was a lot of fun.
That's sad. I'm glad his picture's here, and I'm glad you were able to share that story.
He's a great guy.
So we're not
Um,
finished, folks, but I do want to give Dave's contact information because that's on that same slide. If you do have questions that we don't cover today, or you just want to connect with Dave, his email is Dave, Dave, at Speedy Turtle, SPEEDYTURTLE.net. There is an actual QR code. So we're going to talk more about this race in a minute, but if you want to donate to Dave's 2025 race, I mean, there is a big race coming up. We'll talk about in just a minute. That's an actual link. If you go there, that's where you can help donate to help him with some of the expensive, because it's very expensive, and he can talk more about that. But there's more questions coming in. Do you have any tips for training for a person? So training a person that has low or no vision and they're trying to do swimming, how did they stay straight when it's like lap swimming? And what are your tips for that?
it is interesting. There are I only swim in pools that have the rope lanes set up, and it literally is not any. There's no real science behind it other than if the ropes are up, you stay in between the ropes, and when you hit one, you swim back the other way, and your body gets attuned to going straight. I count strokes, so I have some idea when I'm about to plow into the wall. You can get, and I forget what they're called. They're these little plastic balls that are on the end of long sticks that you hook onto the end of the lane of the at of like onto the rope at the end of the lane, so that when you they form a little like a miniature gate, and when your body hits them, you know that in the next stroke you're about to hit the wall. So they give you it's sort of a warning that you're almost at the end of the lane.
That's
But there's
cool.
no the harder part of this, frankly, and the question that would then come next is when you're doing things like triathlons, you end up tandem swimming. And that's a whole different animal. And the best that I can offer you there is get someone who's incredibly patient. Uh, you learn how to interpret different movements that your tandem swimmer is making through the bungee cord that's attached to both of you. You literally you when I'm swimming tandem, and I don't think we have any pictures of tandem swimming here,
We
but
don't.
I always bring my hand back along the rope, and you can feel if it's about to start turning or something like that. And that to me is one of the more amazing things that you can do with another human being is swim tied to them.
Yeah, I can imagine. So, yeah, Bobby Lake, he said, have you ever considered starting a 501(c)(3) for people that do what you do?
I don't know. If I started one, it would probably be primarily to help fund some of this stuff. I uh, I don't know if I would be the right person for helping fund something like this. I would be happy to work with others who are more tuned in to the workings of 501(c)(3)s. I I feel like if I got too involved in something like that, then I would take away, and this sounds a little selfish, and in a way it is. I I have to keep the focus on primarily on me a lot of the time, and moving forward with a full-time job, and then doing things that require 8 9 hours of training a lot of the time on the weekends. Time is at a premium.
Yeah,
So what I think I would offer is I would be happy to work with someone else and let them do some of the 501(c)(3) stuff, because it's just beyond what I know how to do.
that's a great question. Yeah, that's great. So we're going to run out of time, and I've got more questions. But one of the things I want you to talk about, what is your next big adventure? What is this race that you're doing? What team?
Next big adventure is being done with a team called Rusty Dogs of War. It was put together by Caleb Klein, Kimberly Klein's son, who's out there listening to us as we're speaking. It is we will have 8 people, and we'll basically be doing a 3,000-mile race. As think of it as almost like a relay. Every person has a disability of some sort or other. And several people on this team are disabled vets and were hurt in the service. So we want to be the first team made up of a variety of people with different disabilities to complete this race. We have 8 days to get across the country, a little over 3,000 miles. And the logistics of it, if you think about 8 people, you all have backup bikes in case something happens to your bike. And then you've got a crew member that you're traveling with, and maybe a couple of crew members. It's going to be a lot of people moving down the road, at 15, 16, 17 miles an hour. So that's my next really big adventure. I then intend to do this as a solo project again in 2026, which will be my second solo attempt at it. I want to be the first blind tandem cyclist to finish Race Across America as a solo project. I made it 1,200 miles in 2024. I'm really excited about being on the Rusty Dogs of War team in 2025 and doing this as a relay, and then taking what I learned and put this whole thing together for a Speedy Turtle solo try in 2026.
Wow.
There's
That's,
some other littler things along the way, like a half Ironman here or there, and you know, but
just a half
it's
Iron Man,
slowly.
a daily thing.
But that's the really big one at this point. What I'm really excited about at the moment, frankly, is that I go skiing next month with my blind friends in Canada,
That's
and I
awesome.
love cross country skiing. It's about the most freeing thing you can do.
You've
You're
made
just
me
floating across
decided
the
I want to
snow.
do it. I've thought about it before when I used to work for AI Squared and it's in Vermont.
Yeah, they're way up in Vermont.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but so many people there cross country skied, and I just heard the greatest things about it, and it is on my list. In fact, I
it
even
is an incredible
brought
sport.
it up to my husband, and I don't think he has an interest, so I'm going to have to find some other folks. But I am interested. I think it sounds really cool, really cool.
It's an amazing sport. And what I love about cross country skiing is that it's one of the few things that you do as a blind person where I'm not attached to another human being. My guide is up in front of me or behind me. We're not physically attached, and it's just me and my body and the snow and taking directions from my guide. And I think that's a really liberating experience.
Absolutely. We have time for like a couple more questions. One is, what is the hardest race or competition that you have done?
By far, it'd be my attempt at Race Across America this past June.
Okay.
Nothing comes even close. It was so intense, and I didn't realize it was one of those things where I didn't realize how much I didn't know until we got into it, and I just felt like the whole world opened up as far as what I really need to know to pull this thing off. Uh, and I'm now obsessed with it.
Okay. I was hoping that was your answer, but I didn't want to put it in your mouth. So one last question. If you could share some helpful advice with a person who has low vision, who is legally blind, what would it be?
And this is always a toughie, and I don't want to make things too simple, but basically, your vision or your lack of being able to see is a part of who you are, but it doesn't have to define you. It doesn't have to limit your goals. It doesn't have to limit your aspirations. Uh, and I would encourage you, especially for someone who has recently lost their vision. It's hard, but you've got to keep thinking forward. You you can't let this suck you down and hold you back. And yes, some things may be a little tougher for you to do than other people, and you can get lost in the is that fair and all that type of stuff. Who cares? It is what it is. And so don't let however much vision you do or don't have, don't let it define who you are, and don't let it stand in your way.
I love it.
And that's not just for things like racing for 3,000 miles. It's for doing things like if you've just recently lost vision, relearning how to make toast, um, how to use your phone, just everyday activities. This Think about what you need to be successful and break it down into small pieces and take them on one at a time.
Yeah. It's so, and it's not even just about vision. And I know we don't have time to go into this subject, but I just want to briefly touch on it. There's been, I've ran across it. Well, yes, it's been my immediate family too, because my mother-in-law just passed, but there's been a barrage of people that I really care deeply about that have lost very close people, probably seven that I can think of right now. And I know you recently had a death in your family. It's about
Yes,
those things too. How do we move on from those? It's the same type of thing. Yeah,
it is.
your life is never going to be the same. Yes, you're never going to see that person again. All those things, but how are you going to live your life with their memory to be able to say, to be able to go out and share about how great they are? Yes, of course, there's a time for grieving and sadness and all those things, but it's a process. All of it's a process.
It
So,
is. It
yeah,
absolutely is a process. And at the end, you can't lose sight of the fact that this is an amazing gift that we've been given. Um, and you only get one go round. So you've got to make the most of it.
absolutely. Absolutely. We do have a webinar coming up next month, or actually, excuse me, this month. We're doing two this month. The next one that we have is going to be an overview of the iPad compatible devices that we have. It'll be myself and Christopher Caswell in Sweden. We'll be discussing Magdalink Viewer's newest feature, AI integration, and also featuring some products that we've had on the market for a while, but we'll be featuring them with AI. I don't see the date on here. I do know that it's January 21st. I want to check this to be sure. Yes, it is January 21st, and it is at 10 a.m. Pacific. And that is up on our website, and you can register as well. If you have other people for living with low vision slash no vision that you would like us to interview later in the year, I am queuing up for my next Q2. So send me an email, and I'm going to give you that information next. I am Kimberly Klein. You can reach me at 702-468-6611. And my email is Kimberly, Kimberly .Klein, Cline, at LVIamerica.com. We also have a feedback email if you have feedback for, if you're going to send something for feedback, it is product related, but you can always copy me as well. But it's feedback, FEED, back, BACK, at LVIamerica.com. We could not have done today so smoothly without Lizzie. Lizzie Harris put the PowerPoint together. She's been texting me questions so we didn't bounce back and forth because there's been a lot of them. I apologize if we didn't get all the questions answered. This is being
Shoot me an
recorded.
email.
Yep, that's exactly right. And Lizzie Harris, if you have questions or things from today, I will, once this is recorded, we put it up on our YouTube channel. Everyone that registered will get a link letting them know. So this is recorded today. And it's Elizabeth, ELIZABETH Harris at LVIamerica.com. And you can also text or call Lizzie at 423-822-8660. We're going back to Speedy Turtle's contact in case you need it, but it is Dave, Dave, at Speedy, Speedy, turtle.net. And again, the link if you'd like to be donate for part of his upcoming race. Thank you guys for joining. This has just been an adventure and a pleasure. So thank you so much, Dave, for the time, for encouraging so many folks, and for living such a wonderful and adventurous life.
Thank you. And now I'm off to go back to the job that pays and off to another meeting.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.